Welcome to our first Feds in Motion Challenge Wellness Wednesday event of 2023. This is the first of 5 weeks of Wednesday webinars. I'm Robin Keogh, and I'm the Executive Director of the Federal Employee Education and Assistance Fund, also known as FEA. We are the only charity by and for civilian, federal, and postal employees, and we thank you for joining us today. As I mentioned, Wellness Wednesdays are part of the Feds in Motion Challenge, which is an annual event that supports FEA's mission to help feds and their families. Your participation allows us to do things like offer assistance after a hurricane damages homes, make a rent payment for someone financially stressed after an illness leads to leave without pay, or offer free tutoring for a middle schooler who's struggling with new math concepts. You can learn more about all our programs at FEA.org. That's FEEA.org. As we celebrate 37 years with our Feds Helping Feds community, it is clearer than ever that it takes a village. This village of federal employees, volunteers, supporters, and sponsors to make our work possible. So I want to thank all of the challenge participants joining us today, other supporters who are here with us, and especially today's platinum sponsor, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our sponsor host today, Danita Andrews, the Managing Director, OPM and Community Relations at the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. And they have generously supported FEA and Feds for our entire 37 years. Blue Cross has been there for us at every major disaster we've faced, from hurricanes and wildfires to 9/11 and the longest government shutdown in history, while also supporting our everyday hardship loans, tutoring, and 100 of our annual scholarships. Danita and her colleagues assist and encourage us personally every single day. And I can't say enough good things about her and the rest of the crew at Blue Cross.
So once again, Blue Cross Blue Shield Association Federal Employee Program is really happy to sponsor the FEA Feds in Motion Challenge. We have been with this challenge for 3 years, and I'd like to share that we have a team in our office that participates in the challenge as well. And there is definitely healthy competition there. I won't tell you all the things that go on, but we're really excited to be a sponsor. We're also excited because of the fact that we are a health insurance company and health and wellness is our primary focus. This Feds in Motion Challenge, getting you all moving, getting your heart rates up, et cetera. And the Wellness Wednesdays feature during this challenge is really important to us as well. It's right in line with what is meaningful for us when we consider how we support federal employees in their health and well-being. So we thank FEA for giving us the opportunity to again sponsor and also for allowing us to host alongside them the Wellness Wednesday feature. And we look forward to hearing what Dr. McCartney has to share. We are excited. I'm not a runner because of a broken bone in my foot, but if I could run, I definitely would. And it's something that I may aspire to if I get this surgery someday. But very excited to hear what she has to say for beginners and for those more advanced later. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Danita. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kiersten McCartney. She is a runner, athlete, and scientist who is captivated by the spirit of sport and the dedication needed to excel at any physical level. She's found a niche in combining her love of sport with her intense curiosity about the science of the human body, working to explore our individual potentials no matter what our beginning is. Today, she's going to help us achieve our sport, health, and fitness goals. Kiersten?
Thanks so much to FEA and Blue Cross Blue Shield for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today, or just about how we can kind of level up our running program and kind of advance. If you're looking for some tips on how you can get yourself moving a little bit quicker or maybe add some more miles to your day. So again, we'll kind of talk running strong. So kind of tips for different experienced runners. I've been a runner my entire life, been in and around the sport. This middle picture here is actually of me racing at the Penn Relays back in 2007 when I was in high school. And I laughed with a friend this past weekend because we bought tickets and chose to sit at a track meet all day instead of being, forced to do it when we were in high school. So been running a long time and I'm a big fan of the sport and just really love the community that happens with running. And obviously we know I'm a physical therapist and a current PhD student. And so kind of understand all the health benefits of just kind of being active and getting out, whether it's walking or running and moving yourself I've worked with athletes of all different ages, real passion of working with athletes who have disabilities. So you can see here, I'm working with athletes who have prosthetics, who use wheelchairs, some who have Parkinson's and stroke. So I truly believe that it's just a matter of, anyone can start running. Rolling and we can go from there. So just finding that starting point and then building there as we move towards your goals. So today's focus is be leveling up that running program like we've talked about. So kind of like what are the next steps that you can take in order to advance your running program? So I'm going to walk through 3 different phases. I'll really focus in on the first 2. The last one I'll kind of give very general tips, but it'll get a little bit too specific for the time that we have today. So the first one is just kind of how can we manipulate your training, right? So what are some easy add-ins? And then I can talk a little bit about speed and interval sessions, increasing the mileage or distance of your long run. But I also want to talk about how to progressively improve. So same as for our beginners, slow is smooth and smooth is strong, right? Sometimes we, don't want to be as patient as we need to progress, but that slow progression is really what's going to bring that success and can really reduce our risk of injury or fatigue or kind of not getting to the starting line all healthy. So I always talk to my runners about the goal is to get to the start line healthy, right? If we get to the start line healthy, we have a chance to show off what you've put in this hard work. But if we can't make it to the starting line, right, we can't even have an opportunity to show what we've done. I'm also going to talk to you about what to add in and when, the kind of don't forget us as we kind of build more into our running training program, and then just briefly kind of touch on different advanced pieces such as nutrition, hydration, and then your mental preparation as well. So I'll kind of just walk briefly through training parameters. I'm sure for some of you, if you're kind of have built a running program before, you've heard these things before, but just to kind of get us all on the same page. So volume is usually thought of in your miles or your kilometers per week. Sometimes people will look at it as the number of minutes that they've, run or walk in a certain week. Kind of a standard here that we want to think about is increasing less than 10% week to week. Sometimes this will be a little bit different if someone's at the beginning phase where we may have a little bit more than 10%, but really if you're starting to get into, 30, 40, 50, 60 plus miles, we really don't want to be adding more than 10% a week. It just kind of can be too much for your body to handle. The next training parameter I'll talk about is kind of the intensity, right? So intensity is like, how hard am I going or how easy am I going? There's a lot of different metrics that people can use to kind of rate their intensity. So you could look at your pace per mile. You can look at your heart rate while you're training. You could subjectively do like a rate of perceived exertion where you say 0 to 10, 0 is I'm laying in bed, 10 is I'm running as hard as I possibly could. You can rank it that way. But you want your easy runs to be easy, and that allows us to let our hard runs be hard, right? So a lot of times people end up in this middle where we run our easy runs too hard, and then we're not recovered enough or not fresh enough for the hard runs. So then our hard runs, we can't run as hard. And so they end up training kind of this middle zone the whole time versus take the easy runs easy. Don't worry about what the pace is on those days. You're getting your miles in. But then on those days where maybe we're adding in some of these speed sessions that I'll talk to in a little bit, you can really push the pace. And that's where your body's going to adapt to be able to take on a little bit more of the challenge. And then duration and frequency, I put these two together because these two in my mind kind of add up to give us our overall volume. So you can think about it as the duration of each individual run that you're going on. So again, usually in minutes or miles, maybe kilometers. But then frequency, right? So how frequently are you running? So some people will think of this as how many days out of the week or how many sessions out of the week if you happen to be doing 2-a-days. So you can, again, those two pieces added together are going to give you kind of your overall volume. Now, these are important because when we think about manipulating our training, we want to make sure that we're not manipulating everything at once. So I will walk you guys through kind of a 2-week plan that I've built for one of my more experienced runners to kind of show you what I mean by this. But if you're adding in more miles, so let's say we're going to add 6 miles of volume this week, right? I don't also want to add a lot of intensity that week because that can be, again, like too much stress on the body, and stress is stress. And we want to make sure we're kind of adding the volume good. My body's responding to that this week. So next week, my volume is going to stay the same. But in this, 5-mile run that I ran at an easy pace last week, I'm going to put a 3-mile, tempo run. So 3 of those miles are going to be faster paced. That's increasing your intensity, but the volume stayed the same. So it's kind of an interplay of these two things that can allow you to add kind of to your overall plan. And again, There is no right way to manipulate these. As a coach, I'm constantly changing variables for my athletes, and each athlete is a little bit different. Some can handle a lot more volume. Others, their body starts to break down. They start getting more injured or they're fatigued. And so we kind of manage it differently. A lot of them go on to run the same distance of a race, and some of them may have similar results, but very different pathways that they got there. Next steps for your training. What are some easy add-ons? So if coming off of a beginner plan, you feel like you have a solid base, you've been consistently running in that phase where you're moving from beginner to maybe leveling up that training a little bit. One of the easiest add-ins are strides, or some people call them striders. I generally prescribe these for my athletes 2 times a week. Basically, what a strider is, we are not worried about pace for the striders, but we are worried about effort. So this should be a very hard effort, meaning like 90% effort. So you should feel like you should be running at like 90% of your max speed, but you're only going to do it for 15 to 20 seconds. And then you're going to take a minute walk or jog run in between. You're only doing 4 of them. So a lot of times I do these myself, or I prescribe them for athletes at the end of their easy run, right? So we maybe did a 5-mile easy run, and then they're going to do 4 strides. So again, they're doing 4 by 20 seconds, and they get a minute rest in between. Again, I'm not concerned about what pace is on these, but it should be hard. What this does is it just adds more leg turnover. So you're moving at a quicker speed, and it's kind of building a little bit of intensity in a way that's like, it's not too much, but over time, it's going to add up. I talked about in the beginning program of those 1% differences. This is a good example of a 1% difference, right? Can I add strides in today? I didn't do strides last week. This is a 1% better. Pickups within a run, very similar concept, but you'd be doing like strides in the middle of your run. So again, you could think of this as like, okay, I'm running on a path and I'm going to pick up my pace. So I feel like I'm moving quicker from here until I hit the 3rd lamppost, and do that. And maybe you do that a few times throughout your run. You kind of see a target and you go after it, bring yourself back down to your easy pace for a minute or 2, and then, find another target and go after it. These are very easy ways, and these easy add-ins are what's going to end up building into our speed or interval training. So again, these strides and pickups build your capacity to be able to handle something more. So speed or interval training, I'm sure everyone has kind of heard these terms before. A lot of this is going to depend on the goal that you have for yourself. So the speed training that someone who's training for a 5K is going to be very different than someone who's training for a marathon. And so that's where I'm not going to get into too many details on these, just because there's a little bit too many, it depends, but you're kind of building on these strides. So you could think if someone was training for a 5K, let's say for an example, a workout that they could do is, a mile warm up or 2-mile warm up, and then they're going to do 6 by 400 meters. So that's a quarter mile. So 6 by a quarter mile at a pretty fast tempo, but they're going to get 2 minutes rest in between each of those. And then they'll do a mile cool down. That's going to give us about, a 4.5 to 5.5 mile run total, but we've got a speed work in the middle. Versus, if someone's training for a marathon, they might do mile or 2-mile warm up, and then they're going to do 4 by 1 mile repeats. But they're going to do it at marathon pace, right? So they have less repeats than the, person A. They're going at a slower pace, but they're going for a much longer distance, right? And that's just because the demands of the races are very different. A 5K is very different from a marathon. So these are just, again, things to consider when you're adding to our training. What is my goal, right? Your goal is going to be different than someone else's goal. That's totally fine. But how can you build yourself that's going to lead you to the best success for you? Tempo runs are another one. This is just where add in a longer segment at a faster pace. Sometimes people will do these where they like progressively get faster throughout their run. So maybe you start out at your normal easy pace, and then, if we're going for 5 miles, you do a normal easy pace, and then every mile you're slowly trying to get a little bit faster. That could be 5 seconds faster, 10 seconds faster, 15 seconds faster. And it's just kind of a way to, again, slowly, gradually get yourself moving faster. And then increasing the distance of the long run. So again, if you are training for some of those longer distance races, you want to make sure that you're also like increasing the volume or the length of the run that you have, just so that you can build that volume. And then progressively improve. So like I've talked about before, slow is smooth, smooth is strong. So again, keep those weekly mileage increases to less than or equal to 10%. So for example, if you ran 30 miles last week, try not to add more than 3 to 4 miles in the next week. Don't add multiple new things at once. So for increasing our volume, increase your volume. keep your intensity the same. If you're increasing intensity, keep your volume the same. Keep your base. You still need good sleep. If you're doing some strength work or cross training, make sure you're doing that. If you're starting to add in more volume and intensity, make sure we're thinking about, doesn't have to be a whole program, but, one day a week, or are we doing a 30-minute strength plan, or, break that up to 10 minutes of just a little bit of strength to help you. That's going to keep you strong. And that's what keeps people running for the long haul. And then nutrition, right? So we want to make sure that we're fueling ourselves as we add in more stuff. So the body needs fuel. So you want to make sure that you're giving it some good fuel. These are a little more advanced that I'm not going to get into, but I'm happy if anyone has individual questions or interested in, a consult of any type, I'm happy to help people. So these advanced tactics would be, your nutrition and hydration. This can be kind of general nutrition, but also nutrition and hydration on race day can be very important for those longer distances. So usually anything that you're going more than 90 minutes. Race tactics, again, this is going to play if you're kind of at this level and you want to think about, I don't think I'm executing my races the best way to get the results I want. And then mental preparation, right? So can we visualize how our race is? Can we use positive reinforcement? Maybe you need a sports psych. That would not be me, but I consult with people and I'd be happy to point people in the right direction. I'm just going to give one quick example before our Q&A to give some background on this advanced plan. This is an athlete of mine. We've worked together for 6 years now. When I first met her, she was coming off a hamstring injury. Her marathon time was, I believe, 3:50, and she really had a goal to qualify for the Boston Marathon, which at the time was she needed a time of 3:35 or faster. She had kind of been battling this hamstring that had bugged her for about a year and a half. And so when we sat down and talked, I said, the first goal is to get you healthy, right? You've tried to train through this, you've tried to race through this, and it's still bugging you, right? Because we're not taking care of it. So let's take care of this injury. Let's get you healthy. And then we can put ourselves on a track to achieve some of these goals that you have. She did achieve that BQ in the first race that we put together in that first year. And then since then, she has really progressed. She's been super dedicated. Like I said, we've worked together for 6 years. And in the fall, she said, I want to try for sub 3. So she wanted to try and run a sub 3 hour marathon. And her previous time was 3:08. And I said, okay, let's go. And we had to change some things in her training. So we definitely added some volume, made sure we kept our strength training in, and added a little bit different type of speed work for her. And so I'll give you an example. This is kind of, I believe, the beginning kind of that 3.5 month build that we did towards that sub 3. So you can kind of see here, this is her 2-week plan. And so if you look over on the right side, we can see kind of her total mileage. She had 51 miles. And then 55 miles. So you can again see, right, our 10% of this would be about 5 miles. So we're within that range of, we're keeping her within that kind of consistent volume. You can see, right? So something else I like about showing this is running is very monotonous. Sometimes there are things that are like not the most flashy in it, but it's that consistency that really allows people to succeed over time. So you can see she does, mostly easy runs. Sunday for her is always a rest day. It's really important. We found that keeps her healthy. She's got 2 strength training sessions that, as we built and got closer to the marathon, we went down to just 1 strength training a week, but early on in her training, really want to make sure that we're keeping this kind of front loaded and heavy. And then she does 1 to 2 workouts a week. So you can see in this top week, she has 1 workout and then her long run. And then the next week, you can see we've got her speed workout that she's doing on Wednesday, and then she's going into a long run with a workout in it. So again, there's a lot of context behind this, but you can see she also does strides. So those are the strides I was talking about. This would be a great example of a tempo run. So she has a 2-mile warm up. She's doing 6 miles at her half marathon pace. And then she's rolling into just very quick, almost like striders again. And this next one, you can see she's doing a 20-minute threshold run, a 15-minute threshold run, and then 4x400 meters. So again, this is kind of the beginning of her training. It'll change over time, but just to give you an example of an advanced plan. And that's all I've got. How to alleviate lower back pain is hard to, I'm not trying to not answer your question. There's just different factors that can go into it. So if it's been kind of consistent, I would consider seeing if maybe you can go see a physical therapist who may be able to kind of help you and see. It can be a number of things. It could be that maybe we need to just strengthen up a little bit more. And so maybe your body's just not quite ready for the training and you kind of feel it afterwards. So you work it during the run, and then afterwards, it's more like your body's signal telling you like, hey, like I feel overworked. So we could add some, it could be strength training, right? It could be that, maybe it's time for new running shoes. And again, I'm not trying to not answer your question. There's just a lot of different factors. You can try different stretches and see if that's helpful. But I would generally say like it might be, see if we can get a better warm up, or just see if you can add a little bit of strengthening for your back to see if that's helpful. Motivation, I just think part of that is know your why. So why are you starting this plan, right? Because when it gets hard, you want to kind of go back to that. That's again where I think the accountability can be helpful, because we're all going to have days where you don't, love it. The pros will tell you, pros are on podcasts all the time saying that they, don't enjoy it. As far as running podcasts, there are a ton. So I'm a big fan of the Citius Mag podcast, but they're really more like track and field. Like it's more like a sports podcast for track and field. They'll interview a lot of different pro runners from a lot of different countries. And so that's interesting. Allie on the Run interviews a lot of like female, usually more endurance athletes. She'll do pros, but the everyday runners. But there are so many podcasts out there. The Coffee Club pod, I think, and then I believe it's Two Black Guys Running is a great podcast too. So they'll go into track and field analysis. They're kind of with the Citius Mag kind of overall team. Those are my go-tos. And yes, I do listen to most of this frequently, but I'm a running nerd, as I've told you. So search running podcasts and see what pops up and which ones kind of speak to you. We talked a little bit about the breathing techniques. So again, you can try with like the 2 seconds in, pause for a second, and then, 2 seconds exhale. You can start, with the breathing in through your nose and then out through your mouth. Know that that's like pretty hard to do consistently, in through your nose, out through your mouth, if you're not as used to it. So you could try like 5 breaths breathing like that, and then give yourself a little bit of break, and then 5 breaths again. If breathing you feel like is a thing that's holding you back, definitely a thing to work on. If it's not like front of mind, right? Like the other thing I will say is you want to also be able to just go out and go for a run and not have to think about all these different things. There's not a perfect way to breathe. There's not a perfect form to run in. But that would be, I would say, something to try and start with, and then just play around, like, 2 seconds in, hold for a second, 2 seconds out. But just play around. You might be 3 seconds in or 3 seconds out, and just see how it feels with your different paces. Thanks everyone for having me. It was so great to talk to you guys, and I appreciate all the questions. And I hope that, hopefully some of you will be out the door tomorrow and building those mileages for your challenge. So just know that you can do it. Again, the hardest step is the first one out the door. Don't take no 2 rest days in a row, and you can do it. Just, keep the faith, and it'll get easier over time.
All right. Thank you so much, Kiersten. That was fantastic. And I know we're going to be sharing a little bit more of your advice with our challenge participants over the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for great advice from Dr. McCartney as we go on. Really appreciate all of that. I want to say thank you again as well to Blue Cross and Blue Shield for sponsoring today's webinar, for being part of the challenge, for getting so many of their colleagues out and participating in the challenge, and for just being a fabulous friend to FIA. And again, you can learn more about all of our Wellness Wednesday topics at fia.org/wellness. Have a great day, everyone.